that. Let me just do this. Okay, so hello everyone. Very good morning, a very good day, good afternoon, depending where in the world you're connecting. So we are going to start in a minute, but perhaps before I do that, I wanted to just introduce our guest speaker for today, Hugh Ncube. So Hugh comes from a supply chain background as well. He's been very much involved with multinational corporates in supply chain, currently with Smollen here in South Africa, in Joburg. But without any lengthy introduction and going on about the accolades, he's got a very lengthy profile, so I'll leave that to him to just give us a little bit of background in terms of where he comes from, what he's currently doing. But if there's anything I would like to mention is that he's very much passionate about professional development, and he's going to be sharing with us shortly in terms of his journey. But he's also very, quite involved in terms of what he's doing, where he is at Smollen, and a true leader himself. And then I think for some of the professionals, students that are joining, some of you may have attended SIPO's classes in the past. So SIPO is one of our professional trainers currently with Rio Tinto. He takes on the CIPS accredited programs, diplomas, all the way through to the MSIPS. So today he's going to be sharing with us in as far as achieving competitive edge in or through supply chain. So again, I'm not going to do justice if I were to introduce him, properly. But I think since he's not new within the Supply Chain Academy, and like I've already mentioned, some of you may have attended his classes before, or you might have worked with him whilst he was at Engine or Rio Tinto or all these other companies that he's been with. So without any further ado, welcome to our CIPS accredited international program. The module, as I've already mentioned, is achieving competitive edge or achieving competitive advantage through supply chain. So this is a module that is part of an advanced diploma program, amongst other modules. So for those that are already enrolled, they would have all they would know exactly in terms of, the entire curriculum. But if you are visiting us, so this is one of the things that we do, in terms of just making sure that everyone is able to access these highly sought after programs, culminating to the prestige of MSIP. So on completion, you are able to get certified as an MSIPS professional. But the good thing is that, as you go along, you'll be able to get certified per module that you've completed, which is what we do as an accredited CIPS study center. So perhaps for those that are also joining us for the first time, so the Supply Chain Academy-SCA is a professional education and training institute, globally accredited with professional bodies like the likes of CIPS, CMI, CILT, and a lot of other professional bodies which may not necessarily be within the supply chain fraternity, like your project management type of courses, management and leadership type of courses. So we are also a supply chain consulting agency or consulting firm. So we've got industry experts that deliver all these programs, some of which are also our consultants as far as supply chain projects are concerned. So Sipo, maybe I'm just gonna, end it all there and then hand over, or should I say, bring in Hugh to give us his insights, and then we'll start. Over to you, Hugh.
Fantastic. Morning, everybody. Morning, Brasipo. Morning, Truman. Okay, so I think maybe let me sort of give you guys a high-level synopsis of where I come from. So Sipo has given, Truman has actually given a high-level introduction. So my career began in Johannesburg probably about 18 years ago. I was here for about 2 years. I left the country and I entered into the medical fraternity in the United Kingdom, and I was there for 11 years, okay? And during that period, I sort of grew my career into getting to understand the complexities and what sort of drives the medical device arena, and sort of helping growth expansion into other regions within the European Union. So after I left the United Kingdom, I came back to South Africa in 2012, and I joined a company called Torvest. Torvest, what I did was I helped them expand their operations into Africa, and thereafter I got headhunted by Supergroup, and that's when I met up with Truman. Truman and I actually met up on a flight about 5 years ago, okay? And at the time, he had been very passionate about training, supply chain, and wanted to really do something, you know, disruptive in that space. And we sort of kept in touch since then. So I joined Supergroup, and one of the things that you would know about Supergroup is that it is focused on supply chain, logistics, fleet management. Now, this was about 2015. And one of the things that sort of hit the organization at the time was the decline in demand for their services here in South Africa, right? And one of the things that I was tasked with doing was actually going out and being part of the team that built a strategy around this. And as such, one of the things that we did was we looked at the fleet management business, and we then took it and turned that entire business operation on its head, and we focused on driving it into aviation. And as such, we went out into Kenya, and we were able to win a deal with the Kenyan presidency at the time. That was about 148 million rand. And that was one of the things that assisted in actually turning their business model around, okay? Going after opportunities that were in line with what they did, but also trying to focus on, diversification into new areas as well. I got headhunted by a company, shortly after that, I got headhunted by a company called Datacentrics, and I then went back into heading up their e-health component and driving that into Africa. So we took that into Kenya, Ghana, Mauritius, and Rodriguez as well, with huge success. So currently where I am today, I'm with a company called Smollen. Now, Smollen is a retail marketing solutions company, and I look after the global outsourced services division across the world. Now, one of the things that we actively and have done, even during my time at Supergroup, was helping companies achieve a competitive advantage through supply chain management, right? One of the ways in which you can do that, and this has been done throughout a number of large corporations across the world, was we looked at the benchmarking of actual organizations today across the supply chain industry. And one of the things, or the two things that we found, was that each company needs to stick to their core competencies around being able to do what they do well, right? So for example, if you're in the manufacturing space, you ultimately want to focus on your output and your productivity within the manufacturing environment, right? Anything else that is not relevant to your core industry, you might ultimately want to outsource it. I'll give an example. So if, for example, you have a payroll division, you ultimately want to outsource that, because once you outsource that, you don't have to worry about the people component, you don't have to worry about the technology, you don't have to worry about the cost of managing that entire division. Okay. Now, the second piece that you probably want to look at outsourcing is maybe your HR. But HR is something that I always say is a bit of an interesting one, because ultimately HR drives the culture of your business. And once you bring in an external company to head up your HR, you are beginning to dilute the culture and the diversity of what it is that you guys stand for and drive. I'll give an example. Let's bring it down to a very simple term. So say, for example, you are in a family setup. You have your parents. You ultimately don't want to outsource the father and mother function, right, unnecessarily. Because ultimately, the culture of the parenting structure changes the entire family structure, okay? So those are the things that you ultimately focus on when you speak to supply chain and outsourcing. So supply chains today have become quite diverse and very interconnected globally, all right? Industries have been built out of this. And as such, you've got things such as offshoring today and outsourcing, okay? Offshoring is when, and that's an American term that is used by the American companies. And I'll give an example of this. There is a global cereal manufacturer here in South Africa that recently I got into a meeting with. And they said to me, look, Hugh, we are an American-based business. We want to ultimately look at how we can streamline certain operations within our organization. And they said, we need to outsource certain functions. And one of the things that we got into a discussion around was their payroll and finance team. And we as Smollen have taken that entire giant and embedded it into Smollen, and we run the entire payroll. So from loans that employees might have, overtime, bonuses, all of that now sits within Smollen. And just from doing that alone, the company has been able to save at least about 45% out of what it is that they were actually looking to achieve. We then have a global vehicle tracking company as well. Their entire call center was outsourced to us, right? And we drove that whole conversation around why they needed to outsource it. We focus on creating great customer experiences. We focus on making sure that the interactions with your customers build brand affinity for them, okay? Whereas for them, this was not a core competence. In fact, it was an irritation to them because they had to focus on, jeepers, we're a global vehicle tracking company. We are focused on building the next IoT of things. And here we are now having to deal with customers wanting to know what is their password? How do I get into my app, etc. And we took over that function. So again, driving the conversation around moving anything that is not core and moving it to a partner who's able to drive that. And as such, what you now see today from a supply chain perspective today, that network globally has become very interwoven and is tied in with businesses who have now become strategic partners to driving supply chain management. You know, back in the day when Truman and I were having interactions on a plane, supply chain management was typically managed by one company, right? You had a division within your organization, and these guys were supply chain experts. And they focused on how to get raw materials all the way through to your production line and manage that at a very cheap rate. Supply chain today has changed tremendously. Supply chain ties into the guys who even lease your computers, your IT help desk. Anything that is not core to your core function as a business today is ultimately going to become part of your supply chain involvement. And being able to streamline all these external partners is ultimately what's going to determine the success of your company, because these are the guys who go out and drive the value proposition. I'll give another example, right? So today, Smollen supports, okay, the average South African today interacts with a Smollen-based product at least 10 times in their day, but they don't even know that it's Smollen. I'll give an example. When you walk into a Pick and Pay at Checkers today, and you see the guys who are packing products on the shelves, did you know that those guys don't actually work for Pick and Pay and Checkers? They actually work for Smollen.
Yeah.
Okay. The guys who are actually behind the scenes, who decide where something sits on shelf in a particular store, that store space, we call it a planogram, right? That is designed by Smollen. Okay. Today, in-app activations in certain vehicles with smart features. Today, when you tap into those particular apps and it connects you to a call center, did you know that you're actually coming through to Smollen, right? With large cereal companies today, when you phone them and say, you know what, the cereal grains in my box are short, the people that you actually find yourself talking to are actually Smollen, but they just don't tell you that, okay? The whole idea of supply chain is to be able to drive and mimic the culture of what an organization wants, so that they can actually focus on bedding down what it is that they do best, okay? And those are the key things that you ultimately need to remember from a supply chain perspective. Focusing on what is core, what is non-core, and if it's non-core, let's focus on outsourcing it and having a relationship with the right partners who are able to drive the growth of your organization through that outsourced function. Okay. Any questions?
Wow, what a mouthful. Thank you for that, Hugh. I guess our professionals won't have any questions as yet, because I think you've just shared pretty much, well, Sipo may correct me, but I think you've covered some of the things that were going to be covered in this session, you know, at high level, of course. So, yeah, I think let's end it there for now.